live. It's going live on Instagram. If Instagram is going to cooperate, that will be super great.
I see live.
Yay. All right. Here we are. All right. We are live across multiple platforms on the Big Mouth Media Network. We are here with Juice Fresh Talk for our virtual format and a special guest, Chantel. Who's our special guest?
This is Louie.
Louie.
Oh, we have Nipsey. You'll see Nipsey later on during the show. Hi, everyone. Does my sound okay still?
Yeah, it's good. We just got to make sure that we don't talk over you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now speak up a little bit more. But yes, this is Louie. It feels good to be back. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. And I'll say, yeah, it feels good to be back. I don't know if y'all heard about this, like, crazy stomach virus that these kids have been passing around the school the last couple of weeks, but it hit my household. We were down for 3 weeks. Our toilets have been thoroughly punished, and I am in the aftermath.
Chris Proyer put that comment on your post saying that's some bull when we told him we were canceling. And you commented saying,
by the way, he has it now.
Well, I didn't even know what it was. Sarah had to break it down for me.
So apparently it's what's called the adenovirus. It's like a stomach virus, upper respiratory nasty crud hybrid. More than 7,000 people across Lee County have been to their respective medical facilities to address it. I actually didn't because it's like we weren't running fevers and stuff. But anyway, it's what all the kids have been passed around. It's like the end of the year present for everybody with the school year ending.
Break.
Yeah, happy summer break. But anyway, we're all good for now.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm feeling much better. This has been a season of sickness. It's been like out there and attacking. My poor baby Sarah, and we'll talk about this later, was out there protesting and shaking, and she just was not even doing well. And I'm like, wow, you are definitely committed to this fight because, wow, we'll talk about it though. But you got to take care of yourself too. Don't be afraid to rest. I have to tell Cindy and Sarah this all the time because I'm good at detaching and getting my rest when I need it. I've never seen Cindy rest a day in my life since I've met her, and I think it's a problem. It needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree.
It needs to be addressed here on the Juice.
Listen, my rest day is like cleaning the toilets because I have 3 children, so that's my special place.
So when you start cleaning the toilets, that's when we know you're in your zen.
Well, that's what it's like. Okay, like all the other stuff is taken care of. So like, okay, now I can clean my house. And you know what I'm talking about if you had seen my house over the last 3 weeks.
I can't even imagine. I'm grateful. I love children, but I'm grateful very often that I do not have children. Yeah. Especially after COVID, I was like, oh no. I feel for you parents. That is not.
I was just having this conversation with a coworker of mine, and we were talking about the pains of being single women without children. You feel it, you know. However, what I did explain to her is that we have to often celebrate too. The fact that we don't have children and we have to live in that lifestyle. Some of us are called to be parents, some of us are not. But I told her, every time I lay down in my bed after work, I'm like, thank God I don't have children. Like, I cannot imagine some little kids like talking back and not wanting what I prepared for dinner and stuff like that. I can't imagine. I have a lot. I deal with that with these pups, so I can imagine. But shout out to the parents out there who give us our nieces and our nephews and our godchildren and who help populate this earth, being fruitful and multiplying.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I saw a news story recently about this, about the dinks, the double income, no kids. So, I mean, this is actually even something the cis heteros are getting in on. That it's like,
what? Wait, what is it called? Double income?
The dinks. Double income, no kids.
So that's like what, a movement, a group of people, or what?
There's a lot of millennials apparently that are really into this, and they're like, hey, you know what's cool? To like have a fulfilling career that pays well and then go home to like your awesome house and your cool car and like going out on your boat in the weekend and taking vacations. Like, and there's even, it's like some people, there's like an environmental bent on it, because actually one of the top ways to reduce climate change is to have fewer children and have fewer humans. So some people are embracing that and they're enjoying their life as is. So I mean, I can appreciate that there's pressure on folks because there's still a lot of like old school folks around, but I guess it's like you're not alone, right? Like there's a ton of people that this is what they're doing. So
absolutely, a lot of celebrities have come up, because I did a lot of research on this particular subject because I was struggling. I was like, oh, I'm getting all older and stuff. Do I want to have a baby before these eggs become scrambled? Should I go ahead and get it done? You think about family and and passing it on to the next generation. And so I researched this topic, but there are a growing number of people who are choosing to remain childless, and they're citing reasons like their mental health concerns. A lot of them are saying, why would I bring a child into this world and I don't even like living? Like, you know what I'm saying? Not even to take it there. So
that's like dark. Dang.
No.
But I know there's a lot of people that say that too. Well, and then you also throw in like the millennial economy and the fact that like so many folks can barely afford a house these days or an apartment.
And with the war against women in various ways, sometimes it's just like, but maybe having children is an act of resistance. Who knows? It can be, it depends on your life story, what is considered an act of resistance. We totally messed up our intro.
I know, that's what I was going to say before we get too deep. Maybe we should introduce ourselves and welcome back, because we haven't been on here, all three of us, in a very long time.
No, we have not. Okay, so start over, Cindy. Let's give the people what they've been asking for.
Big Mouth Media presents Juice Fresh Talk, including our hosts, Chantel Rhodes.
That is
say hello, Chantel.
We don't even remember how to do our intro.
I forgot. It's supposed to be like, I'm Cindy Banyai, blah blah blah, and then you pass it to me. You ain't even introduced yourself, Cindy.
I was introducing you first. I'm Dr. Cindy Banyai, and I run this shit. Who's next?
You truly do. We all sitting there like, Cindy, where's the link? Where's the link? Big Mouth Media boss. You know I love you so much, Cindy. But I'm Chantel Rhodes, and I am here to keep the balance, because sometimes people can go a little too far to the other side. So you can count on me to bring us back to center.
Nice.
I am Sarah Wilson, and I am one of those far extreme poles that she's referring to. But I'm so happy to be back with the three of us. It truly is a nice balance to have all three of us here, and I'm very, very grateful that we're all three back together. It's been a minute. So welcome back, Chantel. We missed you.
Thank you so much. I've missed you all too, and thank God for rest. Thank God for taking care of our mental health. Thank God for therapy and rehabilitation and just all of the things that are designed that we really don't take advantage of very much. And I just want to remind everybody, get your rest on, get your spirit, revive your spirit, cleanse the palate of your spirit, do something different, shake it up, go travel. I spent a little bit of time in Kenya, thank God for that, and now I can come back all renewed, touch down in the motherland. So but
that's awesome. It looked like, saw those photos and stuff online. It looked like a really rejuvenating experience, and stepping out of the norm, I think you're right, can really be refreshing. So I'm so grateful that you got to have that experience.
Thank you.
Right.
But we have to talk about, though.
We have a lot to talk about. What happened this week?
I mean, where you want to go with that?
Perhaps.
Is Trump still going to be able to run for president? It's just so much news, so many articles being shared. Is he still allowed to run for president? Why is he still allowed to run for president? Y'all break that down for me, since you got your degrees and you know everything.
There's nothing in the Constitution about it, is what it says. There's nothing
Yeah.
in the Constitution that says being a felony or anything. The only thing I think that bars, the president from not serving is, being, impeached and removed, right? And then also, the age limitations, but there's very little in terms of restrictions against the presidency. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the conversation has revolved around, felons not having, or those convicted of felonies not having the right to vote in some states, and yet we could have someone running for president who is a convicted felon. And what people should understand is, yes, that's a major contradiction. However, the way the Constitution writes out the requirements for presidency versus the requirements to vote, there is no right to vote in the Constitution. There's only amendments that were added that bars states from restricting the vote for certain people. So there's nothing that says you have the right to vote. So states, and it's up to states what those requirements are to be able to vote. Of course, you can't restrict based on racial discrimination, but even that has been chipped away at. The Voting Rights Act has been severely diminished, especially in the parts that mattered, Section 5 and Section 2. So that's
just a federal law, not an amendment, right?
Right. So it is very contradictory that we could have a convicted felon running for office, and yet certain people in the states that are convicted felons won't be able to vote for him. It's this whole situation, and Chantel and I have discussed it a little bit, is so complex, especially coming from the perspective of myself, who is a proponent for criminal justice reform, prison reform, and really has this system in this country that I don't believe in. And yet I think this man who has evaded responsibility for so long needs to be held accountable. It's hard to wish this system upon anyone. And there's a lot of contradictions going both ways. And I think that that's something that we should definitely be addressing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm with you on that, Sarah, because I've been walking this line too, right? Talking about like how can you support rights restoration and want all these criminal justice system reforms, and then yet say, hey, Trump should be disqualified from office. I think Trump should be disqualified for office for multitudes of reasons, right, above and beyond the fact that he is now 34 times convicted felon. However, I do say that you have to be within the system that you are, right? So it's the same thing that I've said about Byron Donalds, right? Like Byron Donalds, by the way, I have found no evidence that he had his felony convictions legally expunged, right? And the way that the court system was existing in 2004, it seems as though they've kind of just disappeared, right? Which in places with high levels of corruption, like here in the United States and in Florida, can happen, right? And so if you're given within a system and then you don't play by the rules, right? Then that's unfair, right? So I have a problem with somebody like Byron Donalds, who has felonies on his record, being able to make it all the way to Congress because he gamed the system in a way that other people cannot. And also, as a state legislator, made it harder for felons to vote after the public determined that they wanted felons to have the people who had felonies to have their rights restored, right? So he walked through the door after someone waved a big white magic wand and then closed the door behind him. So I have problems with that. It's the inequities in how people who have means can game the system in the way that people who do not cannot.
Right.
So do you think it's going to lead to legislative changes, especially if Trump is the Republican nominee and the Republican candidate? Do you think this will lead to changes in felons being allowed to vote? Because I know I ran into that when I ran for City Council Ward 3. I ran into conversations with people saying, I have never voted. This is what my record is, my criminal record is. And they were just completely disengaged from the entire process, because to them it did not apply to them because of their record or their background. So you would hope that with Trump's possible nomination, that'll lead to some legislative changes. Like, we either need to tighten up on the requirements for presidency, or we need to free the vote and let people.
I love your optimism.
Have their. I'm asking the question. Y'all are the experts. I represent the people. I'm listening. I'm getting all these questions, and I want to read something too that I saw on Instagram. My camera might go off. It says, "Black people don't cheer for this," meaning Trump's conviction. It says, "Black people don't cheer for this. Donald J. Trump is Nelson Mandela. Donald J. Trump is George Floyd. Donald J. Trump is Trayvon Martin. Donald J. Trump is Breonna Taylor. Donald J. Trump is every Black person unjustly convicted under the system of justice. You are cheering on his arrest, but the same system that targeted you targeted him." How do you all feel about that? And I'm not going to tell you what source that's from, because I
have very specific feelings about this. So let me go first, please. And then Sarah jump in. Okay. So I actually started noticing this trend directly after the verdict came out as well, that there was a ton of stuff coming out on social media that was essentially equating Trump being convicted of felonies with the experience that Black people have had in the judicial system in the United States. So much so that I actually came across an AI generated picture of Trump as a Black man, flanked by Black men behind him. Okay. Like it was, I saved it. I'll share it to you guys later. I'm not going to repost it because it's like disgusting, but, not, you know what I mean? It's like a really, really weird, bizarre thing. But here's what it comes out to. This is, in my opinion, and I'm sure the evidence will follow us very soon on this iteration of it, but I do firmly believe that this is Russian propaganda. This goes back to all the way back to the 2016 election. It was founded, people went to jail in the United States for acting on behalf of Russia, specifically targeting Black voters to try to dissuade them from voting and persuade them to be in the pro-Trump camp. Okay, this is well documented election interference from 2016, specifically targeting Black voters. I believe that this is an extension of that campaign, of that same tactics that are being used, and I do believe that they're being pushed by Russia. Currently, because this is like brand new, this was like this week, right? I don't believe that there's been enough research on it right now to be able to prove that, but I do believe that we will see that, because again, it's the same playbook, it's the same group of folks that that have been targeted since 2016 by foreign actors acting on behalf of Russia. So that's my take on it.
You ready for mine?
I got a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I sit at your feet humbly forever, teacher. Yes, Sarah, I like to hear your take. And by the way, that was presented by the Black conservative movement, that particular piece. I left out certain words because I didn't want to read, the whole thing. But yeah, that was presented by the Black conservative movement. So what are your thoughts on it, Sarah?
I think it's insulting to all of those people mentioned that he is compared to, because Donald Trump has evaded responsibility and accountability for his entire life because of his privilege, his wealth, his status, and his skin color. Because you can look at President Barack Obama, for a prime example of that. Perfection was expected out of Barack Obama as a candidate. Perfection. Anything he did that could be torn to shreds and him be belittled or criticized about was used. Mm-hmm. And in fact, by Donald Trump, to accuse him of not even being a U.S. citizen, to accuse him of being Muslim, all of these accusations that were directly tied to his race were used against him. And now for Donald Trump to use that same platform is disgusting to me, because actually, no, you have been able to get away with so much because you are a wealthy white man. And even in his candidacy, the fact that he's been accused of touching women, said out of his own mouth, about grabbing women without consent.
I still don't see how we got past. I thought grab them by the P was going to be the end of it. I still don't see how we even got past that. I truly did. I was like, oh yeah, he's done for. After that video was released, and no, he wasn't done for. In fact, he probably gained more strength, just like after this conviction. And I want to speak to your point, but I think he raised $53 million in the first 24 hours after his conviction. That's profound.
That's what he says.
I mean, I don't doubt it. There are a lot of people that are riding tough for Trump because they see Trump as somebody who's also bucking the system of corruption in a way, and it's almost like a checks and balance system. I kind of see it as, but that's bigger picture style. But as far as the Mandela comments, I felt as though we got to remember that Trump is entertainer in chief. Ma, can you turn that down? My mama come over here playing her music all loud and blasting her music. But Trump is entertainer in chief. You know, he definitely wants to say things that will inflame and cause a riot and cause people to really go into an uproar. And I think we just got to remember that when we are reading all of these posts.
Except that they're dangerous. So it's not just, yeah, he says things to, and I don't think it's necessarily, you could be entertained by it, but I don't think the purpose is entertainment. I think the purpose is to incite riot, to incite this base of his that he absolutely positively knows is very, very dangerous. And we've seen that play out before. So I think at the same time, we have to take that very seriously because of what, January 6th, that can happen again, and I think that it can be like, we can sit here and we can laugh at his antics, but at the same time have to understand how damaging that is, both physically and just when you consider the state of our democracy and the health of our democracy.
It is damaging to our reputation as Americans. We are looked at as like, it's like a clown show sometimes. When I talk to my friends overseas, it is definitely something worth tuning into. But I would rather see the United States be the leader in other areas such as human rights, and not just entertaining the world and giving the world something to see in terms of a fight for power and this power struggle that we constantly see play out.
So I
was gonna say I just popped over to see that. I have some questions about that Facebook or that Instagram page.
Let me just read it again for those who didn't catch it. It's by a person called Sir by Holt. Black people don't cheer for this. Donald Trump is Mandela, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor. Donald Trump is every Black person unjustly convicted under the democratic system of justice. That's what the word I left out before. You are cheering on his arrest, but the same system that targeted you targeted him. So then there is an admission in that there is something unjust about all of those, that entire line, right? There is some truth to that. And then going back to Sarah's point about, am I for criminal justice reform fully, or am I for criminal justice reform until it pertains to someone that I dislike or a candidate that I feel is damaging to the United States of America?
Well, part of my issue and why I believe the criminal justice system needs reform is specifically because men like Donald Trump have continuously gotten away with whatever it is they choose to do, while we still have people sitting in prison on marijuana charges when white men are now getting rich off of marijuana legally in this country.
That part.
So no, the injustice that has been done by our criminal justice system has mostly been because of those racial imbalances and how the criminal justice system treats people like Donald Trump very, very differently than they do Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and anyone else on that list. And that's why it's so damn infuriating to hear it. And I don't care who it came out by. It's still infuriating because it's speaking propaganda, not truth.
And actually, like I said, I'm looking at the page right now. First of all, I don't see the post that you're sharing. So there's a potential that could actually be a completely fabricated post.
Right.
Pretending to be that page. Second of all, I went through the followers. Most of them aren't Black. Shocking. And I'm searching that up. They seem to really only have their Instagram page, and I'm a
You
little.
Talking about Baller Alert?
You said it came from the Black conservative movement.
Meaning the movement overall, not that page. But I sent it to your inbox, like the conservative movement.
I was gonna say,
because Baller Alert is the one that shared that post. I reshared it in my Instagram story, Alchemist239. I reshared it in my Instagram story, and I shared it not really looking at the bottom of it. Because it says Trump supporters liken him to Nelson Mandela. So it's an entire thread of people saying Trump is Nelson Mandela. And these are the people I see reposting it is saying these people are minorities. They look Black based on their profile pictures. But it says Nelson Mandela spent nearly 30 years in prison for doing nothing wrong other than being Black.
I mean, here, let's give it. Okay, if he really is Nelson Mandela, let's put him in prison for 30 years and we'll see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. Trump lied about money he used to pay off a sex worker and will probably do little to no time in prison, and will come out a martyr. That, my friends, is called white privilege. So you have people going back and forth.
Yeah, I definitely take a look at it. I think my final thought on this is like, just be super careful about this, because like I said, there is a significant amount of evidence, including criminal convictions, that since the 2016 election, there have been Russian paid operatives who have been targeting Black voters with this type of content. So I just think as people who want to be aware of what's happening in politics and not be manipulated, that we should be extra concerned about stuff like this. That's actually one of the reasons why, when I saw that AI generated image of Trump as a Black man, I was like, oh shit, here we go. Because that's the line, right? It's like, this is the through line that those operatives who want to disrupt U.S. elections have been looking for.
Absolutely.
Right? It's right there, and now they're pushing it really hard. So I'm just asking everybody to exercise a little bit of caution.
Absolutely, and it is a disruption, and that's why I appreciate balance, and I appreciate truth tellers who will expose certain things, because just like when Trump showed up in the south side of Atlanta at the Chick-fil-A, and the young lady was like, oh my God, look, we're Spelman, we're Morehouse, we are the entire Clark Atlanta University, we're represented here, we're Black kids and supporting Trump. It was staged. It was staged in such a way that I believe Candace Owens, the person who organized it, works under Candace Owens. And so I think both sides do play that game. And because now, honestly, I see rappers and stuff, and it's like you wouldn't recognize some of their posts. I ain't gonna call out which 239 Florida superstar rapper has been really pumping a lot of left-leaning messaging, but I think both sides do it. But to your point, yeah, people just have to know how to dig and do their research. That's why I like CNN, because it's your C-SPAN, not CNN. C-SPAN is your unfiltered view of government. It's pretty much just very straightforward, and that's a news source that I think people should definitely listen and learn from. You hear the voice of the people, but then you hear the voice of the experts, and then they just kind of give it to you straight.
Yeah. And don't forget that Trump just had a fake rally in Brooklyn where he bussed in hundreds of white people. Byron Donalds was there. Or speaking of rappers, there were some rappers there, and they all were talking about how, or was it it was in Brooklyn, it was the Bronx. Sorry, it was the Bronx. But anyway, so they were talking about, oh yeah, that's, again, the kind of thing that's Black conservative movement type of thing. But there was really very, very few people actually from that area that were there. It was a completely staged thing. And it's all about giving this impression that there is a significant amount of Black people coming into the MAG movement. So let's be clear on this.
Which the end game, it produces more Black people who are interested in saying, oh, okay, what's going over here? Black people in the conservative movement. Let me give more attention to it and check it out. Yeah, it definitely is a tactic, I will say.
But it hasn't been a lot of numbers. That's the other thing. These are lies. Like, let's be clear, okay? Byron Donald presenting himself as somebody who's bringing Black people into the MAGA movement is not true, right? Like, but Black voters, because I defeated him 2-1 in the Black vote in his own race, okay? Also,
I definitely believe that, because when it came to the Black community in Southwest Florida, I can honestly say we know who Dr. Cindy Banyai is. She continues to show up far after the results were in. That's just who you are. So I definitely agree with you on that. But Cindy, you have to agree that the Black conservative movement, not that particular entity, but the page, not the page. Sorry, my mama is trying to hug me. Bye. Love you. Say hey to the people. You might as well. We good now.
Hey, mama.
All right.
I love this hairstyle you're rocking.
Thank you. I see it for. Lord, I done forgot what I was about to say. What was we talking about? The Black conservative movement. Yeah, Cindy, it is growing.
Yeah, but it's astroturfed is my point. Like, it's astroturfed because it's not actually, there's a very small percentage change, but it's not nearly as big as any of Trump's crowds are of anything that he says. It's all fucking fake is my whole point. Is like, so it's an astroturf campaign trying to look like busing a bunch of people into the Bronx and saying that these are Trump supporters in the Bronx. It's not real. And I think that's my message on this part of it too, is like, yeah, okay, it looks like a lot of people are going on. I just looked at the 90,000 followers on the Black, some of the 90,000 followers on the Black conservative movement. I'm going to tell you only about 10% of them were Black. Okay. Like, it was a bunch of white people following this thing because the white Republicans and the white conservatives want to believe that they're bringing Black people into the movement because it makes them feel better about themselves and makes them less culpable for their racist activities.
Right. Which, speaking of which, here's what we can talk about the Republican Party in the state of Florida. I don't know if you all heard, but you know about the new Department of Education curriculum on social studies and the benefits of slavery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we heard about that. Basically, essentially saying, look, Black folk, it seems like you ought to be a little appreciative for all these skills that you developed during slavery, that you can take to these jobs and earn whatever amount of money you earn. You need to show a little appreciation for the process of slavery. That's essentially what it says to me.
Yeah,
that's essentially what they're trying to say. And it says today it came out that Florida is sticking by social studies standard teaching benefit of slavery. So they're not backing down on that. That's
Sandy, talk about, let's see. I ask you this sometimes because you have children. We talked about not having children. What is it like? Because your children are educated in the public school system, right?
Yep, they are.
I know that you're doing the work at home, but is it really like that where these kids are really out here like taking home messages and believing that, slavery is something that, should be seen as patriotic, and it was a gift to Africans who were brought over, transatlantic slave trade. What do you is it really happening in the school system?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, we have seen this already. I mean, these are, what Sarah's talking about are like newly implemented components to the social studies curriculum. But we saw a huge case in Collier County last year where a teacher came in and said, hey, let's celebrate, Confederacy Memorial Day, and this is why, and a lot of apologizing stuff. My kids, actually were involved, and we went straight up to the school board and the superintendent, where they had a substitute teacher who, rather than like taking care of the class and giving them activities, just put on Bible verses in the classroom, a video trivia of Bible verses, and we took videos of it and photos of it, and we went to the superintendent, and there was an investigation. So I mean, I'll give Lee County credit for that. So yeah, these types of things are happening in the schools. These kind of outlandish types of discussions, and I think that they're only going to get worse with this kind of curriculum, and by the way, with our new partisan superintendent election coming up. So, I'm very concerned about it. I mean, luckily for my kids, they got me, and but it's some of this is so kind of insidious that it just lays this foundation that you don't question, right? That if you're taught in first grade that, hey, slavery wasn't so bad because the masters, they really wanted to protect their investments, and they took care of people, and then these people learned things.
We were like a big family. We brought them
right. It was a big family, and then they got all these amazing skills, and they got to live in this amazing country, right? Like, if you hear that early in your life, you just take that as fact, right? Like,
I mean,
and that's
look at the story of the Pilgrims and the Indians and Thanksgiving. That's what we all learned. How many people still believe that that's true? If you don't go to college and learn about colonization and all of that, you still think that was a whole friendly exchange. So this shit works, and kids believe it, and then they grow up in that attitude, and in that, and then you have kids that grow up and say, well, you should be grateful. Where you have Black kids that are learning the real history from their relatives, and hopefully white parents are teaching their kids that this is bullshit, excuse me, but you don't know that. Sorry, it's crazy to me.
What, Nipsey, what do you think about this? What's your take?
What's your thoughts, Nipsey?
Nipsey wants to know what's outside.
Oh, Nip says it's nap time, mommy. Let's cuddle.
Yeah. What's your thoughts? No, seriously, you barking all throughout the podcast. I'm having to mute, and now when we ask your opinion, you're silent. What is that?
It looks like he's disheartened by the state of education in Florida.
He is. He's worn out. He's worn out by the state of education.
So I don't know. I think that is, the state of what the Republicans are doing in the state of Florida. So, I have opinions about how both parties address certain issues, especially race. Like, the Democratic Party hasn't been that great in its past either, and I think that's why, the Black conservative movement has any momentum whatsoever, is because they can, there is a sordid past for both parties. But when you're looking at things like that and what's happening in the state of Florida, and even, at the national level, when we talk about Joe Biden, I'm so sick of hearing people be like, I can't, Joe Biden this, Joe Biden that. And I'm like, are you serious? Is it even a question for somebody that's not a diehard Trumpian to not vote for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump?
Joe Biden
I can't make sense of that.
Joe Biden has been doing his thing. He's been putting in work. It is pushback because he was asked to speak at Morehouse, and while we're talking about education, I did want to kind of highlight our very own Sarah Wilson. Just recently graduated from the Florida Gulf Coast University. With a 4.95,000 GPA? What is that? I don't even know how to say it because I wasn't in that bracket myself. I was a good 3 point something. So yeah, congratulations to that. Headed into law school, where actually you're in law school. You started your law school journey. So, but to go back, I just wanted to give you that little shout out. Sorry, my mind is kind of everywhere. But yeah, President Joe Biden spoke at Morehouse recently. He had some strong words. I was like, Joe coming out swinging. He was so swaggy in one presentation he gave. I'm not sure if it was the one at Morehouse, but he was like, who else got all these Black women as justices? He was talking that stuff. I said, you better, Joe Biden. And he said, let's make it clear. We won because of the Black women that supported Kamala Harris. He gave props where props is due. And despite his sincerity, he's getting it done. Versus a group of people that there's this urge to ignore and to belittle and to minimize the stories and the plight and predicaments of Black folk. I witnessed it myself recently. I was in a group setting and I was telling a group of white folk just, something about how Black folk do at funerals or whatever. And this one particular guy was just such a discomfort every time I brought up something cultural. He was just like, that people in Ireland do that too, or are we in Ireland? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing here? But there was this constant urge to say, you're not special. You don't deserve any kind of special adjustments or recognition or even consideration for what you have experienced, because it's just all a blur. And he kept throwing out, I don't see color. I don't see color. And that just makes me cringe. When people say they don't see color, why? What's the purpose of having color if you ain't gonna see it? What's the purpose of having differentiations if you will not appreciate and at least just acknowledge that there are differences? So I do my thoughts in summary on it all. I appreciate that Black folk are not a monolith, that we're not automatically as we have been in the past, so loyal and dedicated to the Democratic Party. I can appreciate the fact that people are opening their eyes and their ears and they're kind of seeking for themselves, and to some extent, and some people legitimately do support it. But I also appreciate how the growth or even the fake growth of the Black conservative movement causes Democrats to realign and re-strategize and say, hey, how can we present more sincerely? How can we present in a way that is truly beneficial to the Black community? So I think that competition there is necessary. It's necessary for growth overall. So I say, shout out to the Black conservative movement.
I agree 100% with you on that part, because I think the Democratic Party can sometimes get too complacent with the fact that they think they have a guaranteed Black vote.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think that's a good idea. So I do agree with you that there needs to be some fire lit under their ass in many respects. And especially when it comes to, like we were saying with Joe Biden, like Joe Biden is not progressive enough for me. Like, if
he's so cute.
I like Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is a decent human being, and I can appreciate what he's done, and I'm definitely going to vote for him. But if it were up to me, how far, and I won't say certain words on here because how far left I go. So he's not there for me. But at the same time, it's frustrating to hear people that are like, oh, he's not progressive enough, I'm voting third party. It's like, we can't really risk that right now. Now, in the state of Florida, where it's kind of a throwaway, maybe, but at the same time,
who knows?
There's money, and who knows? And there's money behind that too. So it's like people that are supporting these third parties, their money could be going to Joe Biden, their money could be going because we can't risk losing. We just cannot risk losing to Donald Trump. So I get that he may not be your favorite candidate, but come on now. And even especially when it comes to the Palestine situation, which I think we need to breathe more life to talking about on here. But especially when it comes to that situation, a lot of people are angry with Joe because he hasn't done more. Right. But I don't know that anybody would have been able to do more.
Exactly.
To be honest. Yeah. It definitely wouldn't be Donald Trump.
Yeah. What do people expect? He's not the Messiah. He is not meant to make all the world's problems go away. He's meant to govern with as much decency. I love that word that you used to describe Joe, decency, because I think that was lost. After Obama left office, once Trump became president, decency kind of became a wider scope to govern, and all of it ain't bad because some stuff needs to be challenged and disrupted. But overall, I say shout out to Joe Biden, and it's not just because he chose my sorority sister, Miss Kamala Harris, as his running mate, but it's just because of the simple fact that he is actually listening. His campaign, shout out to his administration, they're listening to the lack of representation, and he has responded accordingly to that.
Absolutely. Shout out Joey B. and the 200 judicial appointments he put in, which I hope will make a difference. And there's a lot of diversity in those judicial appointments. And it's about the best shot we have right now at saving our democracy outside of the upcoming election.
Lord have mercy. But we spent a tremendous amount of time talking about Trump. But it was necessary. This is what happens when you wait, 4 months to record a show and you take a hiatus. It's just like, ugh. We needed to do a first five-part series. But I did want to bring it locally. Sarah, can you give us some updates on what is happening with this Chris Jordan case? It has been, this happened in October of 2000.
December 1st.
It was in December. Okay, so in December, there was a shooting of an unarmed Black man who we now know as Mr. Chris Jordan. There was a history of mental illness, a history with this family, with FMPD knowing who this family was. There was a fatality occurred. Talk to us about the decision that came out, the efforts that you and Project Justice, which we have to give Project Justice a proper introduction, but Lord, it's just so much to talk about. But talk about Chris Jordan.
Okay. All right. So recently, as of 2 weeks ago, the state's attorney's office, State Attorney Amira Fox, came out with her decision not to file any charges against Officer James Moschella, who was the one who shot and killed Christopher Jordan. We had been pleading with her office to put this before a grand jury. And I'll give you a little bit of background on why that is. Within the court system, the prosecutor's office and even the criminal defense the public defender's office, the prosecutor works in close proximity to the police department. They work together a lot of the time. So in my opinion, it's never appropriate for a prosecutor within that same system to be investigating police, because really what they're doing is investigating their own, which is also why I don't believe it's appropriate for the police to be investigating police, because there's that culture, right, where
Absolutely.
They kind of protect one another.
Imagine getting me to investigate somebody on the Juice podcast. It's like, what? I'm going to ride with my squad. Ultimately, that's not going to be an unbiased opinion.
Right. So we had been asking, and when I say we, I mean at the time it was the NAACP, had been asking for a grand jury to decide on this case. Well, she did not put it before a grand jury, and she made the decision not to press charges. And the reasoning she's giving is because the sister made the call, the 911 call, said he was armed and he threatened her life, that the police officer was under the assumption that he was armed and he thought he saw, but the trick is she doesn't say that he thought he saw. She says in her press conference, he saw a gun. No, he didn't, because there wasn't a gun. So you can't keep saying that. You can say
it'd be good for us to pull those clips, that particular clip of her saying it, and insert it if we can. And not only that, also the clip of the police chief saying there was a gun when the story first broke,
right,
leading the public to think and believe a certain way.
Right, which I believe, and I told Chief Fields this to his face in a meeting that Chantel and I both sat down with him at, that he had a responsibility once he found out that Christopher was unarmed, that I feel like he had a responsibility to correct that information that he initially released. I felt that the community and Christopher's family had a right to know that Christopher did not, in fact, point a gun at an officer. So, but he said he could not do that. We've since learned, obviously, that he definitely could.
He could have.
Yeah, he could have. He chose not to, because he was afraid that we would have the streets flooded with protesters if it got out that Christopher was unarmed before that decision was rendered. So the state's attorney's office is not filing charges. The officer is back to work. And apparently the internal investigation through the Fort Myers Police Department is happening now with him back on the job.
Did Chief Fields ever come back and address the public outside of Amira's confession that he did not have a weapon and did not point a gun at an officer? Did Chief Fields go back? Because I know that's one of the things you called him out on too. Will you go back and tell the public, hey, we put out this statement to the media that he didn't have a gun and he actually did. Has he done that?
Not to my knowledge, he has not. However, I will say he has reached out to the NAACP and asked for a meeting, and myself and President Mwakil do plan to sit down with him to have that meeting, to see how we move forward, because now that they're not pressing charges, we are still asking that she overturn that decision. That's not typical unless new evidence is presented. However, I think that they need to remove the fact that a gun was seen out of the equation, because it wasn't.
Yeah.
So they need to get to the bottom of what actually they did see. And that's what I don't think that they've investigated enough. What did he see?
Right.
And I know that we're supposed to just act under the presumption that it's okay that cops just shoot because they think
right.
or they think that something's going to happen. That is not acceptable. Nope. That is not okay. And that's the thing that we need to change, because 100%. They were there. If you watch the video that a citizen took of Christopher being shot, you will see all of those police officers lined up behind police vehicles. None of them were in danger. Even
where's that video? Where is that? And how can
I have it. If you want it, we can post
we'll
it.
Cut it into we can cut it into the podcast and video version that we'll put on YouTube.
Okay, perfect. I'll send it to you, because you can see that they were all behind police vehicles, and the sniper who had his sniper set up on the front of the police vehicle on a tripod had a shield in front of it. And when they moved after they shot, they all moved behind shield and in a, in their, however, their stance where they go in. And you can see no one was surprised. No one was surprised he got shot. That was the plan. They lured him through that window to shoot him. And you can't tell me otherwise, because they kept saying, come to the window, come closer to the window. And you do hear, because at first I said, I've never heard the shooter say that there was a gun. Amira Fox said, he said, hand, gun, gun, gun. No, he didn't. And you can listen and you can hear them. And he said gun once and shot with it at the same time. As soon as he said gun, he shot. Now, of course he said that. But where my mind is at is a real investigation. You need to determine what he saw, if anything, at the time that he shot, because he damn sure didn't see a gun. We know that.
Right.
So, but she, in her press conference, which we should provide a clip for that as well. In her press conference, she says unarmed once in the whole press conference. Do you know what she says repeatedly? The sister, the sister, the sister, the sister, the this, the that, the. And how can you even use that as justification when the cops, and I have to clarify, because she said 2022 in her press conference, but I want to say the information is actually 2023, that the cops had been out to that home 15 times. The last time was the week before it happened, the week before he was shot. So tell me how, and with the same accusations, there was a time where she said he tried to stab her, a time that she said he tried to shoot her. So how did all of those times you left with Chris alive? Why couldn't you have that time? Not only that, but why, if you've been out there 15 times, multiple times in which she accused him of trying to take her life, and you know that that was false, how were you not equipped with that information the night you went out there? Quit blaming the sister, because the protocol would have been the same. Chief Fields and his team said that in his office that day when we met with him, that the protocol is always the same when somebody is barricaded in their house. They have to assume that they're armed, whether they know that information or not. So if they don't know that information, like if no one has made that accusation, they are automatically going to assume that they are armed because they have to protect themselves. So his sister, how they're trying to point the finger and point the finger and point the finger, that would have been irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's low.
Not only that, we need community police that are offering resources. In those 15 times that they went out there, Christopher and his sister should have been offered resources, or they should have been taken into some type of alternative family court where a resolution is decided that these two aren't safe to live together. How can we set them up with resources to make them safer living together so that we're not getting called out here 15 times in 1 year?
Right. What's your thoughts on it, Cindy?
I was going to say, my stand is very firm on this, is that I think it's inappropriate for the police to have a shoot first and ask questions later attitude, period. I do not find it acceptable that the protocol and the culture is to shoot people unarmed. I mean, I go back, and this is not FMPD, it's Lee County Sheriff, but when a sniper shot when there was a hostage situation at the bank, my bank, by the way, that I was supposed to be at that day. So it was a little bit weird for me, but I just don't think that we should accept that. Like, I just don't accept that. I don't accept that as the appropriate protocol. I mean, even if you look at the movies, right? They tried negotiation in the movies, right? Like, we're going to call the guy. It's a hostage situation, right? Why are we pulling out snipers? Like, do we live in Afghanistan where it's, there was an ongoing conflict and we got snipers up there because we're shooting terrorists? I don't agree with that either, by the way. But I just think that we have this perception of our policing needs to be, and it has been hyper militarized, by the way, and there's a plenty of evidence of this, of federal grants to buy paramilitary gear and old military gear. It's a win for the State Department, and then all these folks who are in local police departments get this really cool gear, right? Really cool Army gear, but like, do we need that? Do we need the bomb squad stuff? Do we need like these armored vehicles like we have? Do we need that? Do we need that? Because what I'm seeing is I am seeing FMPD and Lee County Sheriff using this material, these weapons, the hammer thing that I saw Carmine Marcino take onto another man who was having a mental health crisis to batter down his door, and then put it on TikTok. Like, do we need that? Because what it seems to have done is create a situation where we have local police interacting with citizens to their detriment because of these types of high-powered weaponry and this idea that we have to police our communities in the same way that we would police a war zone.
And somebody said, because I like to run to the comments, but somebody was saying, if they have all this high tech equipment, to your point, why is there the need to shoot, so quickly? That is the point of all this high tech equipment. But
right,
I did want to speak to that. I've spoken to both of you privately because just for the sake of addressing and not being afraid to address anything. When it comes to the sister, I don't know if anyone has had a conversation with her, if there is a possibility. Have you in the past seen a person be held responsible criminally when something like this happens, if they were to make a phone call? A lot of people do have questions about the sister, her involvement, her responsibility. And while I do know that I'm sure she is catching it in many different ways, perhaps her own guilt, perhaps the views of maybe family or friends that know about her making the phone call criminally. Do you think there should be any responsibility, Cindy?
No, because we don't know the situation with this woman, this family, right? It does sound like there's a lot of issues there, and she could have been mistaken as well. Like, she could have thought in her mind that there was a weapon or that there was a possibility of it, right? I don't know that situation. I'm not there to judge. But what I can say that happened is an unarmed man was shot by the police, right? That's what I do know. So who is in charge of that? It's the police officer and the policing team that decided to shoot him, right? Because that is their, like Sarah said, there's a protocol, and they know. Listen, anybody in the judicial system will tell you eyewitness accounts are trash. Like, they're not to be trusted. They are faulty evidence. You don't know what's really going on. The police have a responsibility to assess what's going on in reality, not based on what some person called and said.
So anybody can call and make accusations. Anybody can call and make false accusations on anybody. And, I know your question is, should they be held accountable for that? And just to clarify, the prosecutor answered that question in her press conference. The media did say, do you plan to bring any charges against Cynthia, the sister? And she said, no, they don't intend to do that. So in this particular case, no, they don't intend to do that. But I didn't mean to jump in. Cindy, you can go ahead and finish.
No, that was my rant. That was their responsibility.
I jumped in and asked the question. So sorry about that.
No, I'm good. No, and you know, here's the other again, like we don't know the mental health situation. We don't know what she really thought. We don't know what he told her. You know, there are people, the cops were there a whole bunch of times. There was a lot of tumultuousness. And if mental illness is really a factor here, it does run in families, you know, so I don't know. I don't know if it's there. I don't know if there was that intention. Because you know, there's levels of criminality, right? And to be able to prove intention is kind of part of it, right? Like, so you know, I don't know. I cannot answer that question, but I can definitely answer that the police shot somebody who was unarmed and they should be responsible for that.
Absolutely. I can agree with that. I can agree that, okay, they said the officer won't be terminated. Is there going to be any corrective action? Are they going to tell us if that is the case? Because I do believe, you know, Fort Myers FMPD so far in this situation has wanted to pride themselves on transparency with the public. You know, that's why they were open to meeting with Sarah and myself and the NAACP and perhaps others about the Chris Jordan case. But training, will the officer have to undergo something special? I don't know if it's something that is super internal, but I would hope that this is a learning opportunity for the Fort Myers Police Department, because it was a fail, right? It was a flop. The investigation came back. There was a ton of money, a ton of time, a ton of resources spent on investigating this matter, when perhaps Fort Myers Police Department could have, again, followed protocol, because they did tell us, despite what the sister said, they have an obligation to follow the protocol and to handle things a certain way. And if we see clearly that that was violated, I would hope FMPD can admit that. So far, we haven't gotten a clear admission. I don't expect them to tell us every ounce of corrective action that was made against that officer, but I would hope that there is training involved so that so that it doesn't happen again.
Well,
maybe that's me being optimistic again. I'm looking at Cindy's face. Don't do that, Cindy.
Well, I want to just say that I don't believe they were transparent at all. I don't believe they were transparent, not one single bit. I think Fields asked me to sit down with him to try to appease me and to get me to be quiet. And I told him in his office, that's not going to happen. He didn't tell me anything in that meeting outside of what their standard protocols are, which are absolutely unacceptable. So am I willing to sit down and discuss further with him how we can move forward and things that hopefully he will be a part of the change? I hope that can happen. And to your point about what corrective actions they will tell us and what they won't, they should be telling us everything. That's the thing. They are employed by the city, which means they are employed by the people, which means they should be fully transparent. So any corrective measures we should know about. We should also know about our police, their records, their individual records, their write-ups, their citations, anything that is flawed on their record, we should be aware of. Just like we're aware of all the little awards that they get every time they post them on Facebook. I want to know all of those things. And many municipalities are doing that with success. So it's not that it cannot be done. It can absolutely be done, and it builds trust.
Yes,
it does. So important.
In this situation at least should be embarrassing to Fort Myers Police Department. If no criminal charges are filed, if the officer did not lose his job, this should at least be embarrassing enough. And I do appreciate the protesters and everybody who has been out there consistently, especially you, Sarah, who has been committed to getting this story out. We just had a meeting, what was that, a little over a week ago, and people were just sitting here like, wow, we're right here a couple of streets away from where it went down, and we knew nothing about this story. We knew nothing about it. That just goes to show you how powerful protesting is and how powerful those efforts are in just spreading awareness to what happened. So at least this is an embarrassment to Fort Myers Police Department. When I'm written up at my job, I would hope my corrective actions are not put out to the world. And I think it's the same here. And I think, I don't know, do other police officers, are they going to look at this officer and say, hey, dude, like, yeah, you brought a lot of shame and embarrassment to our agency? Or maybe there are those conversations happening. I don't know. But At this point, we can do what we can to honor the life of Chris Jordan, and we do that by upholding the banner of justice and saying, hey, we don't just want to hear about those things that you're doing well. We want to hear about mistakes you've made and ways that you plan to correct those mistakes.
Yeah, I agree.
The conversation is not over. We will be having a town hall very, very soon to discuss as a community, bringing everybody together.
Who's sponsoring that town hall?
Who's what?
Who's sponsoring and hosting that town hall?
I will tell you briefly because we are running way over, but Project Justice plans on sponsoring that town hall. In partnership, we plan to partner with the NAACP. They've been a great support. President James Mawakil has been a great support and partner in all of this. So we hope to be able to do that together and bring elected officials, candidates, experts on a panel to discuss what can be done, right? Because the state, you know, you have different laws coming down from the state saying what municipalities can do, especially with the police in the past 4 years. In the state of Florida, they've restricted a lot of what municipalities can do. So we want those experts there to say, this is what can be done from the municipal level, the state level, and so on and so forth, so that we are actually addressing the policy and trying to make those changes and get this at the root. So absolutely. So that's to come, and Project Justice is excited to be bringing that to the community.
So Project Justice, for those of you who don't already know, it is our newest hub, think tank, resource center in Southwest Florida for topic social justice. Is very new and it is maturing quite quickly, picking up. It is so necessary. It is needed here in Southwest Florida. And I pray that this organization grows and it flourishes. There are so many people that are on board with Project Justice. Sarah Wilson and Michelle Johnson, my special friend, are the founders and co-founders of this organization. So be sure to follow Project Justice on Facebook and any other platform, because they will keep us updated on what is happening in our city, so that we don't have situations like Chris Jordan's, people unaware of it. We are going to get that word out. And I say we because I just look at whoever is on the side and like-minded when it comes to these topics of what is going on in our environment. That's why I use the term we, but I'm happy. I'm happy that these conversations are being had. I hate that we're running out of time, but that's what happens. Like I said, when you wait so long to sit down and to catch up. Trump took up the majority of our conversation. Right. We have some exciting things happening. I got on my little hat because I am headed to a Western Day party hosted by Theta Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So that is going to be huge, and I'm headed there next. So we do need to wrap this up, but thank you all for tuning in to this very special comeback episode of the Juice Fresh Talk podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you so much, ladies. So this has been the second season of Juice Fresh Talk. Thanks so much to our co-hosts, Chantel, Rhodes, Sarah Wilson, and I've been Dr. Sydney Banyai. If you enjoyed this, we do hope that you'll subscribe to us at Big Mouth Media at bigmouthmediafl.com. You can get these episodes delivered directly to you for $4.99 a month, or all of our episodes for $19.99 a month. You should follow us on our social media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we will keep up with the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us here, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.